Dar es Salaam, Tanzania's port city, is African in feel with a Middle Eastern twist. The muezzin calls the faithful to prayer 5 times a day, a constant reminder of the centuries of foreign influence on this harbor city.
Most buses depart and arrive at Dar es Salaam's main bus depot, Ubongo. One of the many bus services available is the 350-kilometer journey to the Kilwas.
My next destination is the southern Tanzanian coastline. The mode of transport, an old Leland bus.
The bus ride south takes about 10 hours, although delays can be expected.
I settle down to read a newspaper, which is just as well. A suspension rebuild sets back our departure by a few hours. But we're on the road soon enough, although it's not long before fuel problems see us coming to a halt.
Drained all the fuel out of the diesel. So now I would guess they have to put all the fuel back in the diesel before we can get home. But they're having us load up.
The Tanzanian coast road is being resurfaced, but until the road project is completed, road conditions will vary. The route occasionally becomes impassable during the long rains from March to May. It is advisable to travel during the dry season, as Andrew has done.
An entourage of young mechanics are the first to jump out of the bus each time we crawl to a grinding halt. It is their ingenuity that keeps this ancient bus running.
It is wise to choose one's bus carefully. Ask around the bus depot for the most reputable bus company before embarking on a journey. Halfway through the journey south, the bus makes a stop at one of the largest water catchment areas in East Africa.
We arrive at the banks of the Rufiji River and find a shady spot to relax a little bit. A truck carrying a heavy load of logs has gotten stuck driving up from the pontoon. Until it moves, our path is blocked. But they seem to have a plan involving chains and logs underneath the tires.
So the plan seems to be working. Maybe not as fast as they'd hoped, but clearly they seem to know what they're doing.
The late afternoon sun is lowering in intensity as the truck finally pulls away, and our beleaguered bus gets to cross the river. Our journey continues.
Since Andrew traveled this route in 1999, the impressive 1-kilometer-long Benjamin Mkapa Bridge was built over the Rufiji River. The longest bridge in Tanzania has subsequently made river crossing delays a thing of the past. A short dhow ride from mainland Kilwa Masoko takes one to the historic island of Kilwa Kisiwani. Once an important Swahili trading center, goods like gold, ivory and timber pass through the Kilwa Kisiwani en route between the African hinterland and Indian Ocean traders. After around a millennium of activity, decline set in by the mid-19th century. To visit the island, collect a free permit at the Kilwa Masoko District Commissioner's office.
While the island of Kilwa Kisiwani, with its ruins of mosques, grand palaces, and churches, holds historic interest, the nearby mainland town of Kilwa Kavinje is a living monument to centuries of foreign influence along the east coast of Africa. Here, in this ancient fishing village, Arab, Portuguese, more recent colonial German, and traditional African buildings lie crumbling, built on top of each other.
The three Kilwas are within a 30-kilometer radius of each other and easily reachable by public transport, either bus or dhow.
I soon found myself back in Dar es Salaam, just in time to catch a train heading west. Destination, Lake Tanganyika.
With the absence of a reliable road network on this route, the train journey from Dar es Salaam to Kigoma is justifiably popular.
Last passenger.
Andrew is lost on the passenger list. He only bought his ticket the day before the journey. Book as far in advance as possible to ensure a seat. The 1,250-kilometer long central train line was built by the colonizing Germans a century ago and has never been renewed. There is talk of rehabilitation of this line in stock, but until then the 40-hour journey from Dar es Salaam to Kigoma may include delays due to breakdowns. The train transports goods such as coffee, tea, coal and grain. Meanwhile, passengers can choose between three classes, first and second having sleeping facilities. Along the way though, passengers make the most of the freedom of movement afforded the train traveler. "14 hours into the trip, the Central Line train pulls into the first station.
The train stops briefly in Dodoma, Tanzania's administrative capital city. Just enough time for a station breakfast of kebabs before we continue westward.
Kebabs or mishkaki as they're known in Swahili are found everywhere in Tanzania, especially along the coastal area. They're often eaten with rice or chapati, but make an inexpensive snack in themselves. The vegetation becomes lush as the train descends in altitude on the final stretch to Kigoma. This Lake Tanganyika port town is a transit point for travelers to switch from rail to ship.
Okay, now to hightail it to the Liamba, where we can hopefully get a first-class ticket. If not, I'm swimming to Zambia.
Before finding a boat for the journey down Lake Tanganyika, there's enough time for a stopover at the timeless fishing village of Ujiji.
Located approximately 10 kilometers south of Kigoma, the village of Ujiji was once the terminus of the 19th century central caravan route to the Indian Ocean coast. As well as this ivory and slave trade history, Ujiji also marks the spot where American journalist Henry Morton Stanley finally tracked down explorer and missionary David Livingstone in 1871 and exclaimed the immortal words, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume." From Kigoma, Andrew's route leads south down Lake Tanganyika and on to central Zambia. Two passenger ships ply Lake Tanganyika, the historic MV Liemba and the modern MV Mwongoza.
It's aboard the MV Mwongozo that I secure a first-class cabin. That evening, an entourage of villagers stopped by the boat in their pirogues to sell dinner to passengers.
It's dinner time. You can see competition to serve the customers of our great vessel is steep. It reminds me, frankly, of the New York Stock Exchange and ticketers actually trying to sell stocks. It's frantically.
Fish stocks, which are a major source of protein to lakeshore dwellers, are dwindling. Scientists say the phenomenon is linked to climate change and research is underway. Four nations share Lake Tanganyika: Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, and Zambia. For many lakeshore villages of these four nations, the two passenger ships are a lifeline to the outside world. The ship offers not only a means of transport, but an important source of trade for lakeshore inhabitants. The MV Mwongoza's southernmost stop is Zambia's Bulungu port, where one can hire a vehicle to head northeast to the Zambian-Tanzanian border. Factor in delays if traveling during the wet season due to deteriorating road conditions during these summer periods.
After arriving in Zambia, I took a ride in an ancient Land Rover suffering from clutch and brake problems. It was only through the resourcefulness of our team of mechanics that we were to reach our destination, the Kalambo Falls. At 216 meters, it is reputedly Africa's highest waterfall.
Minus brakes, we've made it here on the arduous 25K trip. This man, our driver, has done an outstanding job in getting us here, so for that we're thankful. And then our chief mechanic put in quite a bit of effort as well.
The Kalambo Falls are more than double the height of the famous Victoria Falls, but see few visitors due to their relative isolation. In fact, Andrew was the first visitor in 2 months. Although always worth a visit, the falls are at their most impressive towards the end of the rainy season, in February and March.
But I soon found myself back on a train, heading south on the Tazara line, built by the Chinese in the 1970s. A breakdown was a chance to stretch the legs and enjoy the winter sun before moving on.
The Tazara line runs from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania to New Kapirimposhi in central Zambia, operating 3 times a week. Andrew switches from rail to road as he continues south from central Zambia to Zimbabwe.
Hopping on a minibus from Lusaka to Lake Kariba, a flat tire was made short thrift of by fellow passengers.
Minibuses are the most common form of public transport in Southern and East Africa, but they also have the most dubious safety record. So while they are the most convenient method of transport, it is advisable to take a larger bus or train where possible. Many buses on the 180-kilometer route between Lusaka and Lake Kariba run daily and take 3 hours. The bus ride leads to one of Africa's largest artificially created bodies of water, Lake Kariba. Zambia's main town and resort on the 5,200 square kilometer dam is Siavonga.
Siavonga is a sleepy town on the Zambian side of Lake Kariba, established when its vast dam, straddling Zambia and Zimbabwe, was created in the 1950s. Besides the massive displacement of people living in the dammed area, many animals were trapped on newly emerging islands.
Rock.
I decided to visit a nearby island where the only animal to be found was an errant goat.
And now there are no more animals stranded.
No
Now
more.
people bring their animals out here to keep them stranded. That's interesting.
Although several thousand animals were rescued during Operation Noah in the 1950s, the approximately 57,000 Tonga people had no such rescue operation. The inhabitants of the dam area moved to new towns along the dam shoreline, like Siavonga, making way for what was then Africa's biggest hydroelectric project. The displaced Tongan people continued to campaign for their rights, having lost their ancestral and more fertile lands half a century ago. Walking distance from Siavonga is the 128-meter-high dam wall. This concrete structure holds back 186 billion cubic meters of water, and the hydroelectric station provides electricity for Zambia and Zimbabwe.
Heading over the dam wall, I enter Zimbabwe, country number 3. From here, I take a bus down to Harare, the country's capital city, and I am in time to catch a soccer match. Zimbabwe under-23s are playing Zambia under-23s. But Zimbabwe needs a 4-point advantage to go through to the next round.
Africa's most popular sport is increasingly in the limelight with the upcoming 2010 Soccer World Cup in South Africa, the first on the African continent. And like all the host nation's neighbors, Zimbabwe plans to be directly involved in the big event by hosting preparatory matches and through increased tourism.
I spoke to Zimbabwean spectator David of the chances of his team.
I think they need to groom new players in their squad. Sure, I think that's all. And I think maybe if they take me into the squad, I think I'll play much better. I think I'll play much better. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
Perhaps David should have joined the team because in the end, even the watchful eye of the president was not enough for a win. Zimbabwe lost 3-1.
Before traveling to Zimbabwe, it is recommended to check travel advisories regarding the latest political situation.
I left the bustling streets of Harare behind and caught a luxury coach to Pretoria in country number 4, South Africa.
There are daily buses operating between Harare and Pretoria or Johannesburg.
Lying around 40 kilometers north of Pretoria is the Tswang meteorite crater. Here, a 1.5 kilometer crater marks the spot where a meteorite hit 220,000 years ago. Legend has it there is a giant snake living in the crater lake that trains witch doctors and kills anyone entering at noon or at night. I walked down at exactly noon to look for the snake. Disappointed, I left the crater and visited an Ndebele village, open to the public and sponsored by BMW.
The Maboch Ndebele Cultural Village is 10 kilometers from the Tswang meteorite crater. Both are accessible from Pretoria by private vehicle or minibus taxi. As well as admiring the intricately painted homesteads with their unique architecture, visitors can go on a guided tour to learn more about the Ndebele people of this region.
From Pretoria, another train ride south to Cape Town.
The 1,600-kilometer train ride from Pretoria to Cape Town is known as the Trans-Karoo, as it travels through the Karoo semi-desert zone that characterizes the western inland part of South Africa.
Possible train delay of 30 minutes, reason fairway maintenance.
Passengers choose between economy seats or first-class sleepers, both offering sleeping berths. This train service travels the Trans-Karoo route 5 times a week and takes 26 hours to reach Cape Town, or vice versa. While Pretoria and the eastern region of South Africa enjoys a summer rainfall, the Western Cape is the winter rainfall area.
As I approached a wintry Cape Town, I realized the tropics were behind me, and as I was about to find out, so was Africa.
On the last stretch of the train ride, the scenery changes from the arid Karoo semi-desert to the scenic mountains and vineyards that characterize the Western Cape. This region falls into a temperate Mediterranean climate zone.
Nearing the end of my journey, I witnessed an apparition. A piece of Europe lay before me, a prosperous developed African anachronism.
Africa's southernmost city, Cape Town, is also known as the Mother City, as it was the first European settlement established in South Africa in 1652. It is therefore the city most steeped in the history of the country and the different people who have created the country's unique cultures. The city is also blessed with some of the world's most scenic roads, like Chapman's Peak Drive, which leads the 80 kilometers from Cape Town down the Cape Peninsula.
My journey ends at Cape Point, Africa's southernmost tip, where the Indian and Atlantic Oceans meet. Mingling with tourists, I am thankful of my new perspective of Africa, with its places of mystic beauty, unfettered by the hand of commercialization, where time loses importance and people make do with what they have.